Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to find out what's inside a Lenovo Analog monitor. Model number 9227 AC1. And we know it's analog based on that plug right there. It's a 15-pin plug. It's the only plug on the monitor. This monitor weighs 10.6 pounds. First step in taking the monitor apart is to get the stand off. There are no visible screw holes for the stand, so we have to figure out how to get the stand apart. There are screws on the bottom plate, but that's just for the bottom plate of the stand. Okay, to remove the stand, there are three pieces. First, we want to push in this button here to allow the bottom plate to slide loose. Just a little push tab button there, and the plate comes off. This is all steel with plastic. That's all you're going to get out of this one is steel. The next step is to take this cover off, and you have to use some force to pry it off, but it'll come off. This is now plastic recycling. The next step is to take this piece off, and the best method for that is to fit in a flathead screwdriver under the portion here. It has snap-in pieces, so you'll just have to keep working through it. And then it comes loose. That's also plastic recycling. And it now has revealed screws at the base to take off the stand. And they look like Phillips head screws. Now with the screws removed, we can take the base off. And this is all steel. It's quite heavy. It's a heavy unit. Now what we need to do is take the plastic shell apart. We can look around the edges for possible places for screw holes. That's a good candidate there. Same on this side. Removing that little rubber stopper revealed a screw hole, and that is a Phillips head screw. So I will now remove both screws and look for additional screws on the monitor to take the shell off. Okay, those screws are now removed, but I'm still finding it difficult to take this shell off, so I'm just going to look for additional screws. And on the analog portion of the monitor that holds the video card in place, there are two hex screws. So I'm going to get my hex screwdriver and take these off. This will help once the shell is removed to get the video card away from the machine. Okay, those two are now removed. These screws, these hex nut screws, are not magnetic. They don't come up with the magnet. The magnet does stick to the monitor because the shell underneath the plastic is steel, but these screws are not magnetic. The rubber casings on the back were not just in the corner. There's one in the middle that I missed. So I need to get this rubber casing off and get that Phillips head screw out of that hole. And now I need to pry the casing off. So what I've done here is I've stuck my screwdrivers in the holes to pry open a slot, and then I'm taking the flathead screwdriver and running it along the seam and slowly popping out the seam. And you work your way all the way around it until you can get the whole cover loose. And see, it's already popping up. It's already starting to come loose. So I'm going to take the cover apart and let you see what it looks like on the inside. Okay, here I've got the front cover partially removed. There's a cable holding it there. The next step will be to pry these snaps loose to snap the back covering off of the frame. So there you can see the frame's coming loose. I'm going to stand it up. So what I did here, after getting these side pieces loose, I took my flathead screwdriver and I stuck it in there and I pried it for additional leverage to get it to pry loose. And now the back cover is off. This is all just plastic recycling. And here's the monitor without the plastic on it, without the stand. It is still a very heavy piece of machinery. There are screws to take off on the sides, screws on the back, and I will come back when all this is removed and show you the inside. It's still not apart yet, but these aluminum tape pieces need to be removed, and this plastic piece, you need to get a screwdriver under there and your wire snips and cut that plastic piece in order to allow the circuit board on the other side to come loose. It's the power board has to come loose. I'm still taking the screws off of the steel frame, and once that's done, I'll be able to take the screen away from the steel frame to get to the power board and the circuit board. To take these off, I just stick a screwdriver in and feel them. It's a type of an aluminum foil tape, just extra protection and backing for the wires and the cabling in there. It's just, you can slip it into your aluminum recycling. It doesn't add much weight, but it's still, doesn't need to be in the landfill. Now that the screws on both ends, on both sides, are removed, there's a nice little grippy handle thing here. You can just pull it up and it comes loose. Standing it up, you can see that we're being held in by wires, or still held together by wires. So I need to clip those wires so that I can separate the two and be able to show the inside. So one of the wires was cut. I've got a cable ribbon in the middle and another wire here on the side that needs to be snipped, and then I'll be able to get the screen away from the steel. And that cable ribbon came loose for me, so I'm going to go ahead and make the cut on that wire. Okay, that wire's been cut, and in the front there was a piece of tape holding down the screen. I've sliced that tape, and now the screen is free. The screen backing could be steel or it could be aluminum. This is just a piece of cardboard / rubber matting for heat shielding. When I take it to the recycling company, I remove all this extra sheathing and make it clean pieces of aluminum. This front panel will get either unscrewed or pried off. And I will break this down in a later session or on my own. Once you've done one and you've done 100 of them, there's really no big surprise on how to take them apart. The big items for the screen are how it's put together. The backing is aluminum and or steel. The front frame, aluminum and or steel. And there's possibly, well, I know there's possibly, there is a circuit board on the inside for that controls the lighting systems and whatnot. And there's some parts on it. There's some flat packs, but not many of them. So I'm now going to put the screen aside and work on getting the circuit boards out of the main case. There are 2 circuit boards on the main case of a monitor. This larger board is the power board. The smaller board is the VGA video graphics adapter board. There are screws holding down the boards. Here is the power supply connected to the board. Wiring connecting the boards. Additional screws connecting that board. The screws will be mostly in your corners or on your sides. So I will take a grounding screw. I will now take the screws out and show you the boards. Okay, the screws have been removed. The boards are loose, but they're not free because they are connected with wiring. The wiring still needs to be taken up, but you can see that the boards are definitely loose. So I'm going to work on the wiring here. Okay. Turn the boards over. Now I'm going to free the boards from their captors. Being precise and as neat as possible, the VGA board is now free from the steel casing, and the power board is held in by a snap plug right here to the steel casing. So we just have to pull on that snap plug and then pull the board out. So let me get to that. Now the 2 boards are free from the steel casing. What we have left is the plug still plugged in to the steel casing. The side of the plug, there are, in most cases, 2 priable snaps. But this plug is made a little different. My last video had snaps on the side. This plug actually has what appear to be screws on the sides. And indeed, there are screws right there holding the plug in place. So I need to remove those screws. With those 2 screws removed, the plug can now be removed. You just pull up on it and slide all the wiring right on out. And there we have it. That is an iron ferrite piece with the copper wiring around. This little lightweight unit would be a piece of brass. There are brass prongs in there. This can come apart, and then the wiring would go into insulated insulated wiring. Different from other videos, I want to concentrate now on measuring up and weighing up the steel pieces, but I want to get the stand further apart than what it is. The stand from appearance looks to be all steel, but these portions here have a different shade or tone to them in color, and I think they may be cast aluminum, but I will need to get them away from all these steel screws, because when I put the magnet to it, the magnet sticks to everything, including these top pieces, which I think are going to be cast aluminum. But I need to get that magnet away, or I need to get these steel screws away. All these screws are Phillips head screws, so I need to take them apart and get the plastic away before I truly weigh it up. Now, the plastic's not going to weigh too much, but it is going to add some weightage to it. The rest of these items, these springs and whatnot, they are steel. They're all steel, but I'm pretty sure these pieces right here at the top are cast aluminum, but I want to get the screws apart to see that. Those 4 main screws were holding the plastic to the steel. So this is removed. And you can sort of see at this point, at this angle, that top piece is a darker, more duller gray than the piece that held the screws. I am now slightly more confident that is possibly cast aluminum, but I need to get the remaining steel screws out. Okay, the steel screws have been removed. Screws were on this side and on that joint right there, and on the same side over here. And now what we can do is remove that piece of what I know now to be cast aluminum, because I did do the test prior to turning the video back on. This is a very solid, heavy piece of cast aluminum. Now I want to prove that to you, so I'll take my magnet, and the magnet does stick to this steel. Okay. The magnet does not stick to this piece of cast aluminum. It will not pick up the aluminum. It will stick to the steel. Okay? So it's very important that when you're taking a monitor base, a monitor stand apart, like that one over there, that you look at every piece that's on it and check out the shading of the piece and how it looks. And like I said, this feels like a very heavy piece of cast aluminum. I am going to now take the remaining piece of the base apart so we can get a true weight. This piece of the base is all steel. I want to get a true weight of the steel minus the plastics that are on it and minus the screws that are in it. I want to get a weight of what the steel is. As a bone of contention, these screws came out and they're fine and dandy, but now you have to take the foot pieces off in order to get to these screws. So all of these are taped or adhesive down, and all these have to come off in order to get the remaining pieces off. And I wouldn't have thought that there were screws under here, but there are if you look at the other side. So all those pads have to come off in order to get the base plate away from the plastic. So as a final result, with the feet off, I'm revealing now all the screws that are there. So all those screws, all those Phillips head screws, have to come loose before that base plate can come off. Okay, I have all the screws removed, and now the plate comes off, and that is a pure solid sheet of steel. And this, look at that coloring, and you can actually feel the difference. Let me get this piece away. That's plastic, and I want to compare the coloring again of this piece of steel compared to this piece of, can we all say it out loud? Cast aluminum. So it pays to take the base apart completely to get your cast aluminum out. Cast aluminum goes for much more money than the steel does. So again, this is steel, this is cast aluminum. Now there's a feel for the magnet because it's so close to the steel, but if I put it down here on my leg, that is cast aluminum. It will not stick to a magnet. And the same for the previous piece. Also, cast aluminum will not stick to the magnet. And you can hear the different noise that cast aluminum will make compared to steel. All right, so that was a good find with those two gigantic pieces of cast aluminum. I'm going to weigh each piece up now. So remembering that we started with a 10-pound monitor, these are all the steel pieces, the three main pieces, the frame, and the stand. I do not have the steel from the screen. I'll take that apart at a later date, but that's going to add some weightage. But I'll try to get this in here. This steel alone weighs 3.6 pounds of the 10-pound monitor. So you know there's going to be some extra weightage on that screen, either in aluminum or steel. Okay, I've changed my unit of measure from pound down to ounces. The cast aluminum comes in right at 7.5 ounces. Doesn't seem like much, but if you have a lot of stands that you take apart, or you have a lot of other things that have cast aluminum in them, each piece adds up, and at 7.5 ounces, it doesn't take long to get to 16 ounces, which is 1 pound, which is about 55 cents. So to me, that's time well spent. While I had the scale here, the two boards with the wiring and everything still on the boards weighs right up at 10.9 ounces. With the assistance of my vise and my wire snips, I got out the 3 prongs from the plug. These are brass. Now, they're not going to weigh but a few grams. But as I've always said, as you micro scrap, you continue to take small pieces apart, and eventually they build up, and eventually you'll get a pound, and eventually you'll get the $2 and whatever cents it is for brass. So that was an easy 2-second job. They came right out. It was very easy to do. Here is the power board. With the assistance of my vise and my wire snips, I got out the 3 prongs from the plug. These are brass. Now, they're not going to weigh but a few grams. But as I've always said, as you micro scrap, you continue to take small pieces apart, and eventually they build up, and eventually you'll get a pound, and eventually you'll get the $2 and whatever cents it is for brass. So That was an easy 2-second job. They came right out. It was very easy to do. Here is the power board from the monitor, and we have some items we want to take a look at. Zooming in, there's a copper spool that is very easy to take apart. Once you take it off the board and take the iron ferrite out from the center, you can put it on a little screwdriver like this and just pull the spool and it'll come apart. This is another copper spool with the iron ferrite piece on the center. This is a MOSFET, MOSFET, has copper on the inside. This is an aluminum heat sink. These are what I call capacitors. They are said to have silver in them. This is a transformer. Copper bearing engine is a transformer. Another aluminum heatsink with additional MOSFETs. A copper spool. There's a little bit of copper on that spool right there. These are aluminum. They would go into dirty aluminum. I leave them on the board. It's not worth it. They don't weigh very much. Working our way on through some additional capacitors. These are, again, our transformers with copper. These are very difficult to get apart. I leave them whole and put them in with my copper engines. Another transformer, additional piece of MOSFET. Here is another copper piece. I take these off and take the copper off the iron ferrite. This heat shield here, based on coloring, looks to be steel. I will leave that on the board. Some additional capacitors. These are your video cables. I'll leave these on the board. And that's it for another capacitor. That's pretty much it for the power board. This feels solid. I'm going to leave it here. Sometimes there'll be these pieces will be what's the word I'm trying to think of? They'll have copper in them. There's a word for it, but I can't think of it at the moment. If I can think of it, I'll put it on in the video. I look on the back where these boards connect, or these pieces connect, to verify what they could be. I may have to take that one off to double check. What I'm looking for, sometimes they'll have a little corner notch on the sides, and that'll give it away as to what it is. At other times, you can tap on it to tell how solid it is. This one does feel solid, even though it's very loose. The best way to tell if you want to take it off at a later time is what it looks like underneath it. If it's solid core of what appears to be a plastic gel, leave it alone. You can't get the stuff on the inside. Here is the VGA card or circuit board that has the analog connection. What we have on here is a crystal oscillator that comes off, a aluminum heatsink, this will come off, and underneath is a flat pack that'll come off. The rest of this will go in as a mid-grade circuit board. Here's some little small IC chips. You could take them off if you so choose, or they can just stay on the board for added weight. There are pins here for connectors. These are gold-plated pins. I'm not into gold processing, so I just leave them on the board. So this board will go in as a mid-grade board, green on green, and it is considered a power board because of all the chips. This board will go in as a low-grade board or a power board, and all the pieces will come off that I want to get extra monies for. And that's it. That's what's in a monitor. I'm not going to take the screen apart. I'll do that at a later time. And I'll do the micro scrapping of these boards at a later time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment.